Welcome. Welcome back to Stemming the Gap, where we try to eliminate the gap between the majority and minority in STEM fields through productive conversation. And today, a little bit of a wacky episode. We got, a little bit of myth busting and, a lot of misconceptions and stereotypes that STEM may prevail with other people. And
we're going to crack those myths today.
exactly. And what's great is a sneak peek for our next episode. If you actually are listening, you will know the topic for our next episode. So our next episode, we are going to be talking about modern day STEM. Before you guys be like, oh my God, that's so boring. Modern day STEM in everything, including sneakers, hip hop, culture, fashion, everything. I love fashion. I've been into it. Not just like the trendy stuff that I know I'm wearing a pretty trendy t-shirt or whatever, or hoodie, but like everything that goes with it, whether that be like a topic that everybody's into, and show that STEM is everywhere,
Yep.
And you ever heard the saying math is everywhere from your teachers?
It's not like something that's just closed off. Like it's
everywhere, dude.
So that's something that we'll be exposing in the next episode.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, today we're going to do some myth busting about, common stereotypes. Some of the biggest ones I see, and it's probably pretty obvious, is that because we've been talking about the disparities, I think, in minorities in STEM.
Yeah, and like the struggles. We don't really talk about necessarily like, the misconceptions.
Yeah. And so, I feel like one misconception is that minorities don't have the ability to become big things in STEM. And that is definitely one that, it obviously isn't true. All minorities have the ability.
Yeah, we literally list that's like 3 episodes.
It's just
we talk about how great minorities are
and access.
You know what I mean?
So we'll be diving more into like things like that. So, I think a main theme that you can get from this video is that like we'll be talking about different disparities, but this should definitely make people aware of things that are being thought of against you, and should encourage you to challenge those even more. Be the outlier. You can't be stopped by a system that's against you. So this is meant to uplift and encourage those, not to tear anyone down by any means.
You're always, no matter what you do in life, whether it's STEM or not, you always are going to have obstacles in your life. And your biggest challenge, or your biggest way to view yourself, is how you react and create an action because of those obstacles. That which creates you a bigger person at the end of the day.
Yeah,
I hear that everywhere. So I think the first one, go on to the first myth, first segment of our little episode, which is the 5 biggest STEM stereotypes.
So one, you have to be a genius to succeed in STEM. And this is something I've seen so much, like as an idea. Like if anytime I say that I want to be a biochemist, people look at me like,
not so fancy,
it sounds so fancy, which, obviously you have to be, you have to go to college, you have to have a high level education. You don't have to be Albert Einstein.
It doesn't take a genius to get to college.
Exactly. It doesn't take, a genius to get into a STEM field. You had, people who were extremely uneducated, like back in, the past, in the 1800s, all that, who created world-changing medicine and world-changing, innovations and inventions without that, genius factor.
Yeah.
Obviously, there are those that you see on the frontline news and, so-and-so with like 200 IQ cures cancer or something. And there are those that are really smart, but most scientists are normal people like you and I.
Yeah,
they're not like these crazy intellectuals who are that far off. You don't have to be some sort of crazy genius. It just takes a lot of hard work and dedication. It's hard. That's the truth. It's hard.
I know your dad is certainly not a genius.
Yeah, he's I'm
not saying he's not a smart guy, but
he's a really smart guy, but he's not like 500 IQ Albert Einstein.
Exactly.
Right? Like it doesn't take that much. My dad is a lot of hard work and a lot of dedication to his cause, and that's what got him so far.
Yeah. So one of the main role models that I had growing up was my uncle. My uncle, unfortunately, he is not a minority, so I can't really necessarily interview him. But he works for AMD. Well, the guys who make AMD, and they make processing chips. And like, have you ever into the computer? Even my own computer right here. It's a AMD chip, and that's what basically runs the entire computer, right?
Yeah.
And he makes those and manufactures them, and he even got to like a high-paying job, maybe like a little over like 300K. And it was crazy. I was like, wow, I really am proud of him and stuff. And it didn't take. He wasn't a genius, you know?
Right. Exactly.
He was probably like a normal dude. He dated in high school, you know.
Exactly.
Wasn't too focused on academics. He played sports and stuff. Like,
Exactly.
he was a normal average guy. And look, he's making 300K.
He just worked hard.
Exactly.
It's that work ethic. And even people like Albert Einstein, who we know today as the geniuses, you know, that they are, 200 IQ or whatever.
Yeah.
He didn't speak English fluently until he was 9.
Yeah.
Constantly told by his teachers that he wouldn't amount to anything, that he wasn't pay attention.
He was really like an outlaw of his time, you know?
Exactly. And look at who he is today. And even if you don't develop into, you know, the genius, you can still make considerable leaps and bounds.
Yeah, for sure.
Without becoming that special genius. It just takes that work ethic and that you know, continuous perseverance to
determination.
To reach that goal.
And I think like a lot of what STEM is about problem solving. You know, like doing stuff that, you know, critical thinking and stuff.
Yep.
And it doesn't really take innate genius to really truly and like
I'm good at critical thinking.
Exactly. You know,
that.
I think critical thinking for me came pretty naturally, but I'm not a genius, you know?
Exactly.
I remember my dad taught me like at a young age kind of how to think critically. What was it called? He used to teach this class at MCC. It was like critical thinking 101. And I would always ask like, hey dad, what did you teach? What did you teach today? And he would be like, here's this, you know?
And he'd give you all
exactly. So one of the first things about critical thinking was how to think outside the box. Thinking outside the box. So a lot of people think is like the box what in this context is the idea that you're kind of stuck to not force any judgment, to not force anything, but to think outside of that, to think freely, so that despite what judgment you have, you're able to express your thoughts.
Exactly. And so if Einstein had listened to that, you know, judgment, he would have been able to become the genius he is. And so that's why
you can even, you know, thinking critically, I think another good example was my godmother's a lawyer. So up in Vermont, we went to visit her, and I asked her, you know, as a possible career option, there's like, what is it to, you know, how is it to be a lawyer? And one of the first like quote unquote assignments that I got from her was, you know, was thinking critically. And I didn't really know. So when you get asked for a case, right, or you asked, oh, did this person do this wrong? You're always thinking, you're trying to find reasons of why, you know what I mean?
Right.
You're trying to find all these arguments to prove something, but at the end of the day, what is, you know, a murder? Or what is a robbery?
You
know, the actual term definition, that's thinking outside of the box.
Exactly.
You know, thinking freely and actually being able to analyze and dissect stuff to solve problems. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Not just knowing all the
formulas,
but just, you know, having that problem solving ability, curiosity. These are, you know, the intangibles that you can't just learn from being a genius. There are so many geniuses that don't have common sense and critical thinking, and
and that comes with social, you know, being a lot very social, body language and stuff. Because I feel like some geniuses, they aren't, despite them being geniuses, they aren't, you know, emotionally.
Exactly, emotionally intelligent. So like all these things that contribute to that.
You know, there's always, you know, like in health class, remember IQ, and the EQ.
Exactly.
What is it, EQ?
Emotional. Intelligence course.
Yes, sir. Okay.
Yeah. So definitely.
Right.
And then
people.
Second myth
in minority aren't people in minority backgrounds aren't necessarily as interested in stuff.
Exactly. And I think, you know, that's a major misconception that people have, is that, you know, which is true, they aren't as interested in STEM, but it's not for the right reasons that people think. It's because they're not, they don't have access to the programs that get people interested, right?
I agree.
Like if you go to a wealthy upper class neighborhood, they're gonna have all sorts of different programs and science, fairs, let's say, to get people into it.
For sure.
But then some other poor districts where there are more minorities, they may not be able to afford something like that. So since they don't have the access, that's where people get the idea, oh, they're just not interested. They don't care about that sort of thing. They would care about that sort of thing if they had access to, the resources and the exposure. And I know we've talked about this in the past.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of what
in summer programs.
I think this is what the entire podcast is about. The outreach of trying to get people interested into STEM because
they don't have
because they don't have access. Because I feel as well. I feel like if you go looking for STEM, you're gonna find it.
Yeah,
you will, because there's so many opportunities that I can name on the top of my head. Internships. Like I know even one of them. Well, if you're 16, there's the Leahy internship for nurses and doctors, and dipping your toes into the medical field,
right?
And that's coming from an area which was like a melting pot. It's you will find there's access. Trust me.
Exactly.
And but a lot of the times people aren't necessarily, there's the age-old question, what do you want to do with your life? Or what do you want to do when you grow up? What do you want to be when you grow up?
And since, it seems so far away.
Everybody that I know that is my friends, besides Gavin, is always like, I'm still thinking. I'm not sure, Despite me and Gavin knowing what we want to do in our life, it took a lot of, it took a lot of thinking and a lot of interest and access. Because we have the access, we're able to gain the interest. So imagine if everybody had the access. Imagine how the percentage would go up.
The percentage would shoot up because, people think that, they aren't interested. But again, it stems from the access.
Exactly.
Remember, there's statistics, 71% of white students have an access to a full range of math and science courses in high school. That exposure of those, maybe higher level classes. And only 57% of Black students have that same access. So just a little over half have that access. And this is according to UC Merced.
Yeah.
So it's definitely something that needs to be addressed. And I feel like it's something that, can be fixed. And this would, again, like I said, increase the numbers because people have access. Not everybody's going to be interested, but they're going to be interested because they see themselves in the future.
For sure.
Area. So,
And another kind of like, a little winded.
Another myth that I think, is something that comes up a lot. We mentioned the emotional intelligence is that people in STEM don't have social skills or creativity. And this is something that I think drives a lot of people away. Is that they think, scientists are all these brainy people,
Matt,
know what they're doing.
I think the first thing everybody thinks of when they think of a scientist is the mad scientist.
Exactly.
Easy gray hair. They got a mustache, a lab coat. They're mixing chemicals everywhere and stuff. That's not what a scientist is at all.
Exactly.
Literally, like a scientist could be anybody, and as long as you identify a problem, create a hypothesis, and prove the hypothesis, you can qualify yourself as a scientist.
Exactly.
And if that relates to science, you can be a scientist. But if that relates something to you building something, maybe that could be more of an architect and an engineer. And STEM is really based on the same, 3 component idea. You know what I mean? And I think that's why it's beautiful. But
exactly. And it's not just this one dimension of everybody's brainy and does this.
Yeah.
Like people have that, other emotional intelligence. They have those abilities. Like a lot of when you meet real scientists, they're normal people. They're nice people. They know how to talk to you.
Exactly.
They have to be creative in order to create things and, create new ideas. And I think that once you get that idea into your head and see normal scientists, I feel like a lot of, minorities and, people that don't have that same idea will be more encouraged to get
into this space. If you've ever been to a STEM career fair, you've seen a scientist, they are the opposite of what you think.
Exactly.
Like they are very normal people. Like I have great conversations with them. I'm friends with a lot of them. They're normal people. And, engineering and stuff, like architecture, design, all that stuff, it's not from one person.
Mhm.
You know, that amount of workload and that amount of like, you know, effort can't be processed by one's brain power, like just one person. And I think it requires collaboration, you know,
Mhm.
working with a team that, you know, invokes leaders and rules and stuff, you know. And that doesn't take that takes emotional IQ as well.
Right.
And you know, the idea of, you know, being able to lead, public speaking,
Mhm.
you know, communication, and that, which is super important.
Right.
You know,
Exactly.
you know, no one's just locked in their room or in their office,
Yeah, the
you
lab
know,
just
typing away.
yeah. Yeah, people have lives. These
Yeah,
people have
exactly.
lives. If you decide to become, you know, get involved in the STEM field, you
Yeah.
will have a life.
Yeah.
It's gonna be hard, but you will have a life, and you'll have
And
those.
one
You know,
thing I'll
things.
mention about
Yeah.
STEM, you will, despite like one thing I noticed is the common 9 to 5, like, you know, shabil, I guess, right? You know, just slaving away at a computer,
Yeah.
you know,
It,
working 9 to 5, but STEM is very flexible.
exactly.
I know so many people, and I've been to countless career fairs who have worked um, like overnight, like, well, it's more like generally for nurses, but like overnights, and then they can get like 3 days off.
Exactly. Or
And
work like more
yeah,
flexible
exactly.
hours.
Or somebody could work like 2 to 7, or
Mhm.
no, that's kind of
Yeah.
2 to 9. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
something like that. Yeah, where it
you know,
works for them.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And you know, it's extraordinary, and they're not just typing away at a computer. You know,
They're
they're
doing work
actually
and moving.
they're actually physically, you know, building something, whether it's on CAD or anything, or like, you know, they're writing and stuff. They're actually applying algorithms and things that they are interested in,
Right.
instead of just typing random reports that no one wants to do.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's true.
So, and then the next myth that we're gonna move on to, I think this is one a lot of people get driven away by. Failure means you're not cut out for STEM.
Yeah, I think this was when we researched this to create this itinerary. This was the one that made me so like surprised, because
Mhm.
I think the whole entire like thing about STEM is trial and error. You know,
Exactly.
creating a concept and a prototype that might not work at first, but if you go back to the drawing board and recreate that design and you know, add tweaks and make it better for people, and then that's where you create your product. You know what I mean? It's not just, oh, you know, just because I failed once, my product is trash,
Mhm.
I'm never gonna do this again.
Exactly. People like scientists have to do hundreds of
Exactly.
prototypes again and again of the same exact thing. Just because, you know, let's say like a lot of people will think will get like a bad grade or they won't be able to
Yeah, tester, it's not gonna
understand
matter.
something.
Yeah.
It's like it doesn't comprehend to people. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
Like you just didn't, you know, reach that full result that works out. And you
Yeah.
have to keep on testing and trying again and again. Because STEM is hard. Like
Yeah.
it's not easy. It's hard, but it is so achievable
And rewarding
and rewarding
for sure.
if you just put in the work. And I think that's what happens to a lot of minorities is that they go, they try, and they think it's not for them. They're a failure. I can't do this. It's just, it doesn't work for me.
Think about this. To make your favorite like lotion and your favorite like body wash, and imagine how many testing they had to like unalive just because they want to test a product that was perfect.
Exactly.
You know, there were so many mistakes and so many problems that, you know, original product that the original may had that may have not worked. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So
like, and a lot of even failures led to not only people learning from the mistakes, but also to creations of great things. Like I know there was a failure, I forget his name or her name, I forget what it was, but it resulted in the creation of penicillin. Penicillin wouldn't be created if it weren't for a failure. I think it was like potato chips were created through a failure. Failures.
potato. Oh my God. Yes, I have a story about that. And I know the full story about the potato chip thing. It was like, potato chips were created because there was a guy who was complaining a lot, and he ordered French fries. French fries were booming back then.
Exactly.
And they were like, oh, I want my fry. I want these crispier. And so the chef decided just to shave and fry. And they were so crispy that you couldn't even pick them up with a fork. So he had to eat it with his hands. Yeah. And it was an automatic sensation.
Exactly.
And that was, and without, trial and error, and without going back to the drawing board and actually reevaluating what happened,
Exactly.
we would have never had chips.
Exactly.
And I know everybody eats chips.
And I know that's not STEM related exactly, but like it's it's kind of gets that core concept of like, guys, like you just keep on, trying.
Yeah,
it's gonna happen eventually. Yeah.
And another thing I want to mention is like that 75 or maybe like 50 or maybe that failing grade that you may have in science, math, or whatever it may be, it's not going to matter in 20 years when you pick out your career. No, your job application is going to be like, hey, you got a 70 on the midterm. You think right or something. Yeah, exactly. It's not going to matter. Keep your head up and you will succeed. I promise you.
And this, I think, connects to the next myth I want to talk about is, when you don't understand a concept, the whole topic isn't meant for you. And
I have this problem a lot.
I've had this problem as well where, like, in chemistry class, like because I have a lot of prior knowledge about chemistry. I know a lot about chemistry. It's something that comes naturally to me.
Yeah, that's true.
And when there was a concept, I think it was electron orbitals. It was like a little bit hard.
That?
Right.
I'll take chemistry, so I didn't know.
Wrap my head around. I got it eventually, but when I didn't get it at first, I was like, what am I doing? Is chemistry really for me? Can I do this?
Yeah.
But all the chemists did this easily.
Yeah.
And then
it makes you reevaluate yourself.
Exactly. And I just had to think, no. You're going to get this. Like everybody struggles with something.
Exactly.
I just have
It's how you react.
Exactly.
Like I said before.
Yeah. And I think this is something that happens in general with a lot of, smart kids. Minorities or not is, they think something will come easy to them. And then when it doesn't, they think, oh, I'm dumb or this should be easy. And, it's not cut out for me. And that is something that really derails a lot of people's path to success is when they have that misstep and they don't understand. And then they're like, you know what, I should have just gone the traditional route because,
worked a 9.
Exactly. Worked a 9 to 5 or done this thing, especially for minorities who saying, I want to be a scientist is taking a huge step away from what's tradition. And so, if they're like, okay, if I can't even do this, how can I be a scientist?
That's true.
Let me just go back to what's comfortable, and I'm not going to even try and do this because I can't do
it. And what's comfortable is not necessarily always right. You know what I mean? And I can definitely relate to like the topic and like, I'm not understanding a concept because I don't know if you guys know, but I absolutely hate math. Math is like my worst enemy, bro. Despite me being wanting to be an engineer, I think math is like, I hate it, I hate all the concepts. Like I'm taking geometry right now and, it's not the best, despite, I do have a high grade in that class, but it doesn't mean I like it. You know what
Exactly.
I mean? And I remember we were doing this topic. I remember it was about, so in math, there's this concept called proofs where you have to prove something based on like, a set of theorems.
Different theorems. And
exactly. And theorems, postulate and theorems are like basically just reasons of why something is something. So an example would be like, this triangle is congruent because, they have the same angle and the same sides, and that's why it's congruent. And that'd be a theorem and our postulate. And I hated it because, it was so hard to grasp. Like, why do I have to do this? It's clearly the same. If you line it up on paper, it looked the exact same.
Yeah.
Like, don't care about no stupid number. It looked the same to me on paper. And I just felt it was so useless. How is this going to make me a better engineer? And until I took a step back, and if you really take a step back in yourself, and not even yourself, and not even just math yourself, you really you understand why you're doing something, and you understand, you learn a little bit about yourself a little more.
Exactly.
So I took a step back, and
look at the bigger picture.
Exactly.
Important.
I was like, Mr. H, any way I can get some extra help, like I said before, how you react. Exactly. If I stood there in frustration, and I probably wouldn't have, gotten that 89 on the test that I got next. I thought it was crazy. Hell, not gonna lie.
Yeah, definitely. Like, that could have gone multiple ways. You could have just said, I quit math, I quit engineering, I'm done with this, but you sought out that
Exactly.
You sought out that assistance to push through the problem. And now you know about
exactly,
and now you can do that. And now there's going to be more things that are going to try and stop you, but you can just keep on pushing through them because everybody, like Albert Einstein, he seems like a genius, but I guarantee you there was some concept he didn't understand in school or that didn't come easy.
Yeah.
Everybody has that thing. They may not show it, you may not see that, but everybody has it. I promise you.
Like, I remember one of the smartest girls in my class, or in our class actually.
Yeah.
I thought she was like great. You know, she got like, she used to get like good grades and stuff. But I remember when I had like a really like one-on-one conversation with her, she would put question marks on open response like answers. Yeah. And I'm like, hey, why are you putting question marks? And she's like, I don't know, because I don't know.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Like,
So,
it's okay to not know. It's how you react to that
Exactly.
not know is something. You could just go, oh, I don't know. I give up. I'm done with this thing. But you could say, I don't know.
Yeah. Never give up. You know what I mean?
I don't know. Can you teach me?
Yeah.
Right. Seeking that, teaching and that education. And that's what people who have come so far have done. I bet Albert Einstein, when he didn't understand something, he was like, okay, teach me. I'm going to work on this thing for a while until I get it. I'm going to keep on working at this thing.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that was something that's, really important in this, whole, making progress in STEM. So, and I think,
Pushes into second segment.
Yeah. One quick story time I heard is that, Mae Jemison, some of you may know that name, is that she was a Black astronaut, became the first, I think, Black woman in space.
Yeah.
And she obviously did not have an easy upbringing.
Yeah.
She, came up as, my Black minority living in, she definitely wasn't rich.
Yeah.
And initially what she wanted to be was she wanted to be a dancer. And, that was something that, people were like, okay, fine, you can be a dancer. And then she said, I also want to be an astronaut. That's something that was like way out there. Like, people from there were like, what? Why don't you just do dancing? Why don't you be an astronaut?
I think, Neil Armstrong set kind of the tone for an astronaut being kind of a male job.
Exactly.
First man land on space was a guy. You know what I mean?
Let alone a Black person.
Yeah, exactly.
Forget that.
Black woman.
Woman trying to go to space.
Exactly.
And be a dancer, because she didn't want to give up dancing. She tried to do both at the exact same time.
Oh.
And she exceeded at that, especially being an astronaut.
Yeah.
She didn't, like I'd referenced before, I guarantee you she had some trouble in being an astronaut.
Yeah.
And I guarantee you someone in her life told her, see, you can't be an astronaut. Yeah. Why don't you just go back to being a dancer or something traditional? You can't be an astronaut because of this happening. This is why people like us can't go that far. Sometimes our own people hold us back. Sometimes, that's something I feel like I've seen a lot, is that, they'll be told, we can't do that. That's too far for us. That's not something that we could achieve. And obviously there are those that encourage with their, some that hold back, like your teachers and everything. Like, this is, this is not like, putting down teachers.
Yeah.
Many of them support you, but there are going to be people that will tell you that's too far, that's too much, you're crazy. Yeah.
There's always going to be people who's going to, doubt you.
Yeah.
And not believe in you just because of like a certain stereotype. But, you got to break those barriers to actually achieve what you want to do.
Exactly.
And I kind of have a similar story. Actually, funny story. It's about my mom. Originally, when I was going to tell the story, it was going to be anonymous, but I'll shut up my mom for this one. But I don't know if you knew, but my mom, she studied abroad in France for her college career.
Wow.
And so she was in there, she was doing a physics course, and it was like the normal physics course that you have to do for what she wanted to major in. I forget, but so she studies blah blah blah, and she tries to create a study group. Right, the study group. She goes to her, quote unquote friends to be like, hey guys, do you want to study with me to create a study group? We can share notes and stuff. And she, what she told me? She was like, they told me, she was like, they told me that I should know everything because I'm Asian and I'm a Ching Chong.
Wow,
that's crazy, right?
Wow,
I was like, what? No way. And I don't know if you knew, a lot of European people are Caucasian, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense, right? Yeah. And it was, tough being one of the only Asian people in her class.
Exactly.
She would get picked on a lot. There was like a nickname for her and stuff. And I just found it really cruel.
That's rough.
Yeah. And when it came tests and stuff, when she got the good grade, she was like, oh, of course, the Asian got the good grade. But when she got the bad grades, she was like, haha, I did better than the Asian.
Yeah.
You know, it's a lose-lose situation.
Exactly.
And I remember her talking about it. She went to a kind of like a, like a very deep sadness phase where she was like, I don't even want to go to school no more.
That's
I don't feel like doing this no more. But let's take it back to what we said before, how she reacted to
exactly.
And she was like, hey, if no one's going to create a study group for me, I'll do this on my own.
Yeah, props to her for that.
Exactly.
She could have just been like, I'm done with this. These people don't like me. These people don't appreciate me. I'm done with this. I'm going back home. Forget France.
Exactly.
But that's props to your mom there. That takes real guts.
In her tiny apartment in Paris, she like puts in the work, bro.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, she prioritizes that class over any class. Like she would just like do physics work, blah, 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 until like 12 and then like go to sleep, wake up, go to her physics class.
Yeah.
She was a trooper. Like she told me like they were counting this nights where she didn't sleep because she just wanted to prove to everybody that she could do it.
Exactly.
And when it came for the final, everybody's, laughing. I was like, oh, I'm done for our first year of college and stuff. She's like, and she asked everybody, hey, what you got in the final? She was like, oh, they got the normal 70, 80, 90 or whatever.
Yeah.
She got one of the only people, and she got a 99. And that was the highest score in that entire class.
Exactly. You just got to silence.
Yeah.
Yep.
And what was funny was the professor pulled her aside. She was like, hey, I know everybody's been calling you, Ching Chong and Asian, and because, you're supposed to be smart or whatever, but I just want to let you know, you've proved them wrong. And
exactly.
And you got the highest mark in the class. And she felt so proud of herself, and I think that was like one of the, moments or it was a motivation for me. And I was like, hey, I should really step aside and do this, because there's in reality in my life and in my class, there's not necessarily any setbacks like that. No one's calling me Chang Chong and saying that I'm the smartest because I'm Asian.
And look at where your mom is.
Exactly.
She's
quite successful.
Exactly. So that's really inspiring. Going through that, like just blatant racism.
Exactly.
That's it. Imagine looking, feeling that different. Everybody's white, and you're just being singled out and jabbed at. Not only like being jabbed at, like being different without everybody jabbing at you is hard enough. And now like you're just being absolutely bullied. And I think that is definitely something that is of huge harm.
She took like the lose-lose situation to like a win-win situation in a sense.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And so now I think one thing I want to transition to, and I think is how diversity affects STEM, how great diversity can be for STEM, because I think there's a lot of misconceptions about that.
I feel like
one thing I want to mention is, a lot of people have heard this before, DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I think, this may be touchy to some people, but, we're just going to reference the facts here.
Yeah.
I think it's something that is thought of as, because minorities are maybe being put in, given a little bit of a push to help them get there, that the quality of the positions they're in isn't going to be as high, which is just not true. Like it might make a little sense,
Dive a little deeper, elaborate a little bit, because I'm still kind of, unsure what you're talking about.
Yeah. So, I mean, so DEI basically is where the, government in certain, workplaces will try and give minorities a little bit of a push in certain ways to create more diverse workplaces. And, what a lot of people think is because these people are given, more of a push compared to white people, then they're getting put into roles just because they're black and they don't have the quality.
And okay, so that makes sense. Like, so just because of their a certain skin color or a minority, they're put in these, positions that are, lesser value than ones of the majority, which in this case is Caucasian people, because we are in
America. And they're thought to not be able to perform their jobs well because they got that little push. And one thing I want to say is that there are multiple studies, like in Harvard Business Review.
Oh, heard that.
60 complex, diverse teams are 60% more at solving different tasks. And I know in the National Library of Medicine, they did a study with 9 million papers written and 6 million scientists, and they're
That's
a bunch of
nice.
and they're a bunch of, and they looked at impacts on efficiency and research in those areas with, I think it's ethnicity,
Yep.
discipline,
Yep.
gender, and diversity.
Okay.
And by far, diversity was the most. They evaluated them across factors, but it was a 10 or 11% increase.
Okay.
Positive impact gain, in terms of the quality of the papers, and then there's a 47.67% increase for scientists in terms of their positive impact gain, their efficiency. So clearly, it's just wrong. Like, diversity creates so much more of an impact in positive culture. It's not like they do more for the workplace than just, take up a pity spot. It is not a pity spot.
Yeah.
And I think that's an idea that's, been really heavily spread.
Yeah.
Is that DEI is a pity spot and that it does nothing good. Yeah. Clearly, it does something really good.
For sure. And I kind of want to give a disclaimer.
Mhm.
I kind of feel like, in a sense, you may like think that that minorities are greater than the majority, which is the opposite.
That's not what we're talking about.
What
we're trying to say
to bring
is that diversity, where everyone is included on equal ground.
Exactly.
We're not saying that when minorities do something, it's greater, or when white people do something, it's greater. When everybody does something together, white, black, Hispanic, Asian, when everybody comes together,
I think
that's what
everybody should be celebrated. Like,
exactly.
People, if what we notice is that I feel like Albert Einstein and Isaac Newton, these people who with groundbreaking physics work,
right,
are being so celebrated. But who are the people who are the minorities who actually apply their ideas to create something bigger? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like George Washington Carver, with the peanuts and things, and his agricultural, what's that word?
Advancement.
Exactly. Yeah. And
Definitely.
Which aren't necessarily celebrated. And no, it's not really, we're not kind of, trying to make the majority, which in this case are white people, smaller by any chance, but we're just saying, like, in everybody, everyone should be celebrated.
Exactly.
Everybody and what they do should be celebrated. This podcast isn't just for minorities; could also be for the majority.
Exactly.
In some case, or the white people who aren't necessarily took an interest in STEM, but they're willing to like learn and know about STEM, which is great. But and because this technically is outreach, but
exactly. And so as we wrap this up, I think something that people should really take away from this video is that STEM isn't about your ability or what people say about you or being the smartest in the room. It's about, like you said, that critical thinking, having emotional intelligence, be able to have relationship with people, and having hard work. Because it's hard to get into STEM, especially obviously as a minority. You might be seen, looked upon with certain stereotypes. It's so much harder, and you have to work so much harder. And
one thing I noticed about STEM was that I think STEM rewards like the people with the most curious, the most creative,
exactly,
and the person with the most work ethic.
Exactly.
The person who's able to work the overtime, and put their creative, mind to use for their STEM job, and then that's what's getting rewarded. Maybe whether it's with praise, achievements and money, of course. I feel like a lot of that is what people try to chase nowadays. But it's not necessarily about being the smartest in the room. Like we said before in earlier days, where we took many examples, like my uncle, who is not necessarily a genius, but he's still very, very much successful.
Very successful.
And just because he was working hard and keeping his head low, and breaking all these barriers and stuff, he still was able to succeed.
Exactly. That's right. So and as you come again, hard work, dedication, and think about these stereotypes as something to break the mold.
Exactly.
Be that outlier. Be the person that's different from the conceptions about you. Move in silence, or it's like float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. Like, you'll show them, like with your mom, she didn't try and fight them or get all angry.
Yeah.
She just did her thing. She worked hard. Sat down and worked hard. and shut everybody up.
Exactly.
And, I think that's something that is a big lesson that I think, all of you can learn and value.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. If any of you, would like to drop a comment on the video about stereotypes that you faced, you could do that. We'd love to hear, your different ideas. If you have video ideas, things that you want to talk us about.
Because everybody has
different. That.
I think everybody has different perspectives on everything.
So many perspectives.
Everybody's different. So we would love to take, your point of view and your perception of things to account to make better quality videos,
So be sure to, subscribe or follow. Make sure to, like.
Yeah. Even listening to this by the very end, we put a lot of effort to this podcast. So if you would stay to watch the entire video, maybe wash some dishes, do some homework, but it doesn't matter as long as you're able, at least one view per day, or just one view by you just watching the video, no interaction, just clicking on the video.
That means so much
to us.
Exactly. It means the world.
It keeps us pushing, and we do this for the love of STEM, and we also want to do this for the love of the people, society.
And the more people we're able to impact, it's
the better our show will be.
Exactly. And so, we appreciate you guys. Love you guys, your support.
Of course.
Thank you so much for engaging with us. Hope you really enjoyed this video. Hope you learned something today. Gavin and Winston.
And wait, before y'all even cut off to the video, we will try, but if you guys live in Lowell, which most of our viewers do live in Lowell, but we may or may not be on local news.
Oh yeah,
local TV.
We'll be trying to get into
local TV.
So if you want to, I think it's LTC. Right, make sure to tune into us on that.
We might not get as many viewers that we get on here, but I'm pretty excited.
I'm optimistic for the future. And again, you guys supporting us, subscribing,
get us closer. Maybe we're gonna be on trending on Spotify.
You never know. Anything can happen. Something. So we thank you all for supporting us. We look forward to the future. Hope you learned something valuable today. I know I learned something talking about this.
About myself and motivation, dedication, how that plays into STEM.
Exactly. So yeah, definitely.
And don't even think about those are just examples that he probably made up. Me and Gavin are living proof of dedication, hard work, and motivation, and how that plays into STEM. Despite all our problems that we had and our issues, whether that be emotional, mental, or physical, whether it was at home or whatever, we stuck through it. Or even academic,
exactly.
Right? We stuck through it. We pushed through, and we worked through those issues so that we can able to truly, get what we want, which is career in STEM. What we want to do. So, civic engineer, biochemist.
Yep. So, thank you all for listening. Keep pushing. Gavin and Winston
signing off.